You know, it's really telling when you go to make a top 10 most disappointing books you read of 2021 video and you can only find 5. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty proud. None of these are below a 2-star, and I'm not even sure if this video is worth your time. But hello and welcome. I'm Jade, and today we're going to be talking about the 5 most disappointing books I read of 2021. 2021 was a bad year for me. It wasn't great. It was hard. I have at least 2 different videos updating you on my life because I kept taking hiatuses and then not telling anyone anything about it. But also, I read some really fantastic books this year, and any book that I was not enjoying, I physically couldn't finish. So it's not that I didn't pick up any books this year that were 2 stars, I just don't know it yet because I set those books down. But there were a few disappointing books that I read that I did finish, and when I reached the end, I was kind of like, wow, I've read masterpieces this year. I don't really have time to think about that anymore. So these are those books. I will be going in ascending order, so that is the book I liked most all the way to the book I liked least. The worst book of 2021, if you will. Though none of these books were terrible, I would recommend any of them to the right person. It just didn't hit, especially when I had so many phenomenal books that I have in a video up above, but disappointing reads, let's go. My first tragedy of 2021 took place at the end of February, which is for me the worst personal time of the year. We weren't off to a good start anyway, but my good friend Soleil gifted me this book, and I'm so glad she did so that I got to have the catharsis and satisfaction of finishing a series, though it wasn't the strongest in the series. That is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. This wrapped up the Cursebreaker trilogy for me, and I absolutely loved this trilogy as a whole. I just felt that number 3 was the weakest, and it had a lot to do with its ending. Luckily, since reading this book, I have found out that there is a spin-off trilogy that's coming out that should fill in some of the gaps I felt were left at the end of this series. I just felt like it wasn't as strong as its predecessors. So the Cursebreaker trilogy follows a large cast of characters, but it all starts out as a Beauty and the Beast retelling that is absolutely phenomenal. You have your main character, Harper, who is in a modern day world, and she is thrust into a fantasy world where she has to break the prince's curse in order to go home. There were quite a few fantastic things about this series, but when it came down to A Vow So Bold and Deadly, I have to say I just felt like all of the characters weren't truly themselves, as well as everything feeling a bit rushed in pace. I felt like we had a fantastic setup in the second book, and that the work was pretty much done in this 3rd book, and she kind of just unraveled it as she went. And it partially is my fault because I was expecting such an epic, but after reading the 2nd book and loving it so much, I don't know why I should have expected anything less, and that was what was granted to me, was less. So I'm glad to have the series finished. I'm glad to have it under my belt. I'm glad to know what happens, and I'm looking forward to reading the spin-off series to see if it fulfills some of the things I needed from it. But having left these characters in kind of a soured place for me, it had to make this list because it was the first book I read of the year and the end of one of my favorite series, and it was just okay. Next up is another sequel. This sequel I read right after reading the first book. I read Bonecryer's Moon and absolutely was blown away by the first book. I thought it was phenomenal, and when I saw that Bonecryer's Dawn was already out, I picked it up immediately because I wanted more of the same. Be careful what you wish for, because I got exactly the same. Like it was the same plot. Everything that happened in the first book started to kind of happen in the second. There was so many things that were the exact same formula that I just couldn't enjoy myself, and I actually ended up DNFing it. The reason why it's on this list is because I went back and sped read through it later because I just needed to know if maybe I was missing something. I had already ruined the book for myself. I just needed to know if I had any regrets, and I didn't. it was just okay. But overall, I was just disappointed because I tend to love duologies, and this one just fell flat for me. What is Bonecryer's Moon about? Because I don't want to give away Bonecryer's Dawn, though I guess by telling you the plot of one, I tell you the plot of the other. Bonecryer's Moon is the story of these women who have the power to ferry the dead across into the afterlife, but in order to gain this power, they have to lure their true loves onto a bone bridge and kill them. So we have a main character who goes to lure her true love, and instead she's met with a boy who is trying to seek revenge for his father, who was killed on the bone bridge several years before. After being captured, there is a hate to love romance that blooms, as well as the problem of still needing to ferry the dead into the afterlife so that the souls don't start feasting upon people like zombies. The story was really great. I enjoyed the premise. I thought that there was a lot of beautiful prose, and it had a very creepy, cryptic atmosphere mixed in with some traditional YA romance tropes that I really enjoyed. And when the plot reached its conclusion, I wanted to know what was going to happen next, and was given a lot of the same things back in its sequel. I felt like she had something good, and so she just kept on going. And I felt like there was a huge takeaway from the impact of what we got in the original story. My third book, I really didn't want this book to be a disappointment, but The Witch Haven was not for me. The book halfway through felt like it got stagnant and lost momentum, only for me to find out I was only 20% of the way through. But I think there's a lot of really good aspects to it that people will really enjoy, and I'd like to see in future books. The beginning of the book was a fantastic opening. By the end of the first chapter, I knew what we were about, I knew what we were doing, I felt like I liked the main character, I felt like I had an idea of the premise, and again, a killer opening. But the pacing got weird. It was like a really stellar opening, and then leading into the middle was really slow, and then the middle was kind of interesting, and then it got really stagnant, and I didn't know where it was going anymore, and then oh my gosh, we reached the end. I don't think that the author was probably given the right parameters to write her story exactly how she wanted it, because this is a debut author, and I understand that debut authors usually don't get to write exactly what they want. They have to make it into the market first. So I really hope this book does succeed so that she can write how she wants in the future, because this book did have a lot of aspects to it that I enjoyed. It was a historical fantasy that was queer inclusive, as well as having different ethnicities and racial backgrounds brought in. It really did break down that historical expectation and played in a world that is fiction and allowed you to enjoy that fiction no matter who you are. Yeah, I enjoyed it for those aspects, but overall it just ended up being disappointing when I reflected back on it and all the times that I thought about setting it down but wanted to continue on so that I could really decide if it was just me or the book. And unfortunately, I mean, it's always kind of me, but I think it was also the book. If you have picked up this book and enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, because again, it might just be a me thing. I just felt like it was the book. Oh, the next one was on my 5-star predictions list, which is why it's so high up on this list, because I wanted it to be a 5-star phenomenon, and instead it was a 3.5. I can't wait for the next one, which is just not the same thing. It's not the same oomph or excitement level, and that is Son of the Storm by Sui Davies Onkambawa. And Son of a Storm, I wanted to like this book a lot more than I did. I did like this book, but this isn't really about whether a book was good or not, but my enjoyment of it. And when it came down to Son of the Storm, I liked a lot of things about it, and there were a few things that just stood out to me in laser focus as not being quite on par. Mostly, I would say that it suffered from a terrible villain. I have an entire video dedicated to villains and my love and appreciation for them, because I don't think a book can truly be good without a good villain, and that's where this book suffered. The main character is a sweet little donut, and I absolutely adore him. One of the supporting characters, I can't wait to see what happens with her in the future of this series. I hope it's grand. And there was another supporting character that I had strong feelings for, but are no longer relevant, so I'm just leaving that as that. The villain in this book is really where I felt this book fell short, though. It started out, I thought this villain was really strong, and I was trusting the author to take her there, and then I found out that she just had a very, like, classical villain, maniacal laugh vibe. I don't know, like Dr. Evil type stuff, where I felt like she was missing a level of depth that was necessary for this book to really surprise me and definitely strike me as a 5-star, and it just wasn't there. The magic system is fantastic. The world building is one I can't wait to explore more. There was so much I liked about this book. It was almost a 4-star, but I just couldn't do it. Because of the villain. And that's why villains are so important. Especially if you're going to give them a point of view, you really need to be able to see a level of depth and understanding that I just was not able to get in this one. If this is one of your favorite books, I'm so happy for you. I wanted it to be one of mine, and hopefully I enjoy the second one more and we get to see more of that depth that I was looking for in this first one. My last book on this list was one of the last books I read of 2021. I feel like I'm a little harsher at this point because there were so many phenomenal books I read this year. I was not taking shit from this book. The guest list was a lot of fun. I'll give you that. While I was reading the guest list, I was like, this is fun. I don't know what's going on. People are dying. Ooh, family drama. Ooh, I had some moments where I was like, what's gonna happen next? But when it came to what happened next, I was disappointed, and I shouldn't be able to guess the plot because I'm absolutely terrible at that. I can guess the twist ending, you've done something wrong. And I felt like there was too much that was coincidental, too many things added up just right. I'm not good at math. Again, I really shouldn't be able to add these things up. It just added up a little too nicely. If you're new to thriller and suspense, then the guest list is for you. If you are wanting to be thrust into something a little bit more enrapturing and a little bit more surprising, something that kind of like messes with you, I actually recommend you read Rock, Paper, Scissors. I read that immediately after reading this because I was still in that thriller vibe. We get 2 different isolation stories, but very different endings and very different twists, and I felt like Rock, Paper, Scissors blew it out of the water, which made me give the guest list a 3 out of 5 stars for just not being good enough. What the guest list is about is a wedding that's taking place on an island in Ireland with small flashbacks to the present and a story that takes place and builds up your suspension as to what is actually happening on this island post the wedding. And yeah, I really enjoyed getting there, but the destination kind of blew. All right, so that was as brutally honest as I think I've ever been to books. I'm not usually one to give a negative review, and again, none of these made it into the 2-star category. These are all 3 stars. A book can be good and still disappoint you. You can be part of the problem in having high expectations, such as putting it on a 5-star prediction list, and then it falls short of your own personal expectations. That doesn't mean that these books aren't good for somebody else, and I would love to know if they were good for you or if they disappointed you. Agree or disagree, I am always here for your opinions. Please put them down below. Give a like if you want to like this video. Dislike it, I won't know. And subscribe if you want to, regardless if you do or not. I hope you're enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are, and until next time, bye! This video is based off of enjoyment alone. I am not critiquing anyone's writing prowess because, like, I'm writing a book right now and I can say for certain these are all better than it. I'm just not digging sequels this year. No. This is the only other sequel. Never mind. Theory destroyed immediately. But I was just really disappointed because and I really struggled to complete. There's a cat out there and it's making a terrible sound. Battery life. On an island in Ireland. Oh, I burped all the way through it.